Health is wealth. I wanted to create this video so that people who are you're serious about making a transition from a meat eater's diet or way of living to a non-meat eater's diet, non-dairy, uh, no eggs, things like that, right? Whether you choose to go vegan, vegetarian, it's your choice. But I get a lot of questions about how I eat, you know, what do I put inside of my body? How did I make the transition? How long, have I been, plant-based and things of that nature. So whenever I start to get a lot of questions about a specific area, I see that as a time to say, okay, well, let me make a resource and put it on my page, because you may be someone who may be thinking about making that transition, and I'm going to give you some tips, because I think it's very important that you do it safely, because even within inside of the plant-based vegan vegetarian community, you may not realize it, but you still do have people who are suffering from from deficits. You still have people who still are having trouble losing weight. You still have people who unfortunately are still suffering from various ailments, and a lot of that is attributed to not getting the right supplementation or not making the right replacements. It's very dangerous to switch a eating habit to another eating habit or way of life or intake if your body is still not getting what it really needs. And in some cases, I won't say a lot, but in some cases, it comes from a lack of reading, and getting the proper information that a person would need in order to do this in a way that's safe and that's healthy. Because just because you stop eating meat, and just because you stop doing certain things, you still have to replace protein. You have to still get the right amount of protein. You still have to get the right amount of essential fatty acids, whether it's your omega-3s or omega-6s or both. You need both. And you have to your body still has to get what it needs. That's the bottom line. So you don't want to cut something out and then don't replace it with a healthier replacement to make sure that that's something that's accounted for. That's the best way that I could put it. So and mind you, I'm not telling you that this is something that you need to do or that you should do. This video is for people who are, you've either already made the transition and you're in the beginning stages, or you're thinking about it. I highly recommend that you read about it. Healthy replacements for protein, your EFAs, essential fatty acids, because that's very important. So the first thing that you want to think about, how are you going to replace your protein, right? So just like, people eat chicken, beef, they eat meat, they eat eggs, and a lot of other, meat and eggs. You can use beans, your choice of beans, different types of nuts, whether it's cashews, almonds, regular peanuts, and you also have superfoods like spirulina, chlorella, and they're really good. They're very, very rich in plant protein, because you can take a scoop of of chlorella or spirulina and put it inside of your water. And of course, I advocate minerals water, adding, the X2O minerals, which I did not know about when I first made my transition. 10 years ago, I knew about minerals, but I didn't know nearly as much about it as I do now. So, but what I'm saying is that for protein purposes, plant-based protein, you can look up spirulina, which I think is like 56 grams of protein, plant-based protein, that you can just simply add a scoop or two to your water, shake it up with the minerals if you want to, and you've got protein on a plant-based level that you can carry to the gym. You know, when you got your water bottle, you got your minerals, you can add spirulina or chlorella to your water, right? And you're going to be getting protein. You want to keep you some nuts, you know, whether or not if you got it in a bag or which way you go about carrying it. In between meals, you snacking on your peanuts, you snacking on your, you know, your almonds, and, you know, walnuts, whatever, your pistachios and seeds, you know, whether it's sunflower seeds or whatever kind of pumpkin seeds or whatever kind of seeds that you like. So it's important to know that, because a lot of people make the transition and you don't get enough protein. And if your body doesn't get enough protein, that can be very harmful as well, especially if you're an active person like me, or, you know, you got an occupation that requires you to do, you know, heavy lifting with it. But everybody needs protein, because especially as you get older, I won't say age, because you don't necessarily have to age rapidly as you get older, and, you know, so that's a whole nother story. But nevertheless, you want your muscle fibers and your protein in your body to maintain a certain amount of strength, right? So you got to have protein. So if you stop eating chicken, you stop eating beef, you stop eating all of the meats, you have to ask yourself, how are you going to get your protein every day? So typically, you know, if you look it up, they'll say that depending on how much you weigh, the average person needs at least, the average adult needs at least, depending on how much you weigh, 60 to 100, you know, grams of protein per day. So you have to factor in how are you going to get that protein. You can also invest in plant-based protein powders, because if you're gonna be plant-based and you're thinking about going that route, then you're not going to be able to do whey, which is dairy, which comes from the cow. So unless you're a vegetarian. Now, if you're trying to be vegetarian, vegetarians still do dairy, you still do cheese, you still do eggs. So, you know, that wouldn't be, then you would be able to do whey if you're vegetarian. If you're thinking about just, you know, just canceling out the meat, but you're still going to continue to do dairy products and eggs, then you don't have to think about, you know, whether or not if it has whey or not. But if you do not want to do whey, then they do have protein powders that's made out of like pea powder. You have peanut butter protein powders. You have plant-based powders, protein powders that you can use. You can also create your own protein shakes, like, you know, things that I do. You know, I use like chickpeas. I might put chickpeas within inside of, you know, the bullet or the blender. Add, you know, peanut butter, which is packed full of protein. You can add, you know, whatever kind of peanuts or almond or cashew or whatever it is that you want to add to stack your grams when it comes down to how much does this particular, how much protein does this particular drink have inside of it, you know, per cup or per serving, based off of what you create for yourself at home. So that's one thing that you want to look into. You want to make sure that you got a good daily protein regimen. And like I said, I have various ways of how I get my protein throughout the day. Quinoa, you know, if you like quinoa, you know, that's a protein source. There's so many protein sources out here that the only thing you have to do is just apply yourself and, you know, pretty much see how you want to approach it. Raw vegetation still also has protein in it, because green plants and vegetables are really the primary source of protein. You know, it cancels out the middleman. Another thing that I see, you know, that a lot of people skip over is the vitamin B12, your vitamin B12 plant-based, you know, replacement. Where in a lot of cases, if you was already getting your vitamin B12 from meat, you have to be able to replace that. So, you know, I use the Focus Up and supplements, you know. plant-based supplements. Focus Up, which is it's an energy think drink powder and capsule. It in itself has a plant-based source of vitamin B12 inside of it. You also need to know how are you going to get your vitamin D. You know, I use Cardiozyme, which is another plant-based source, right? And it has a vegetarian capsule. But nevertheless, vitamin D, a lot of people are deficient in that. Vitamin B12, when they make the transition, they be deficient in that. And EFAs, essential fatty acids. And you have several essential fatty acids. You have the omega-3, and you have the omega-6. Now, generally, typically, people that eat fish, salmon, different types of fish, they're getting their essential fatty acids from various oils, whatever kind of oils they use, things like that for cooking or what have you. But if you're looking for a plant-based omega-3, omega-6 essential fatty acid source, then you have to look into things like flaxseed oil, flax seeds that you can ground flax seeds. Flax seeds are very rich in omega-3, omega-3, 6 essential fatty acids. Walnuts are very rich in essential fatty acids. Hemp seed. So now you're dealing with seeds, So do your research on that. Look into essential fatty acids as far as like a plant-based source. And as you educate yourself about that, like I said, flax seeds, black chia seeds, hemp seeds, walnuts are very rich in EFAs. So you have to have a system that you develop for yourself wherein you're incorporating these things within inside of your daily life in some shape, form, or fashion. So that should help you when it comes down to what you're going to go out and buy at the grocery store, when it comes down to your protein sources and your essential fatty acids. Now, as far as like vitamin D, like I said, you have to have supplements, because due to the mineral deficiencies in the soil, when you become plant-based, you're not going to be able to just primarily rely on just fruits and vegetables, because the fruits and vegetables, unless you're growing the stuff yourself and making sure that the minerals are in the soil, which in a lot of cases you're not, so you're depending on your produce coming from the store, the grocery store. You're depending on a mineral deficient source of produce because of the agri-tech, the GMOs, the fruits without seeds, things of that nature, the herbicides, the glyphosate, and all of these factors that you have to factor in when it comes down to trying to predetermine whether or not if your fruit and vegetable source and produce actually has the right amount of vitamins, minerals, and nutrients within inside of it for you to be able to depend on that exclusively. And unfortunately, here in America, you don't. So I always recommend that if you're going to make the transition, you want a very good multivitamin, multi-mineral algae complex. That's another source of, getting your minerals and your proper EFAs and things like that. Seaweed. Some people use the sea moss. Seaweed. They have the seaweed chips. You can make, the seaweed wraps. Like if you're trying to make like a raw food, like a raw wrap, you can use seaweeds. You can use cabbage. Some people use cabbage leaves. I've seen people have used raw collard green leaves to make their wraps. So as you get into the lifestyle, way of life, you're going to learn more. You're going to try out new things. But I'm not trying to get too deep off into like recipes on this particular video. I'm just giving you some go-tos to give you some primary categories of thinking that you need to make sure that you square away, so that way you don't do, and you trying to do better for yourself, you're not doing yourself more harm by placing yourself at a deficit. So you definitely don't want to be in a protein deficit, a mineral deficiency deficit with your vitamin B12, your D, all of the ABCs to the Z's, zinc, selenium, you get the picture. So to help you with that, it's great that you invest inside of a very good plant-based, source of vitamins and minerals, a multivitamin, multi-mineral algae complex. And I'm adding algae because I use Life Source. I use Life Source. I take 2 capsules in the morning and I take 2 capsules at night. So I know that whatever I did not get, and it did not derive from my food source, from my smoothies or anything that I ate, if there was anything missing, I'm going to get it through the supplementation. So that's another tip, so that'll make sure that you got your vitamins and your minerals. If it just be one of those busy days where you probably didn't eat as much as you probably wanted to or what have you. And now as far as like if you're trying to go full plant-based and you want to give up the dairy, you got all different types of healthier milks. You got cashew milk, oat milk, almond milk. They even have rice milk, So, like I said, you look into it, they got hemp milk, right? Coconut milk. And, they just have a very wide variety of plant-based milks that you can choose between. And you can decide for yourself through trial and error which one suits your palate, your taste buds, your expectations for yourself, and then stick to it. And as you move forward, you'll see people that have even moved towards making their own milk at home. And depending on, where you're at, within inside of your growth and your phases of transition or what your expectations are, you could decide for yourself how you want to transition. But I also say be patient with yourself. I didn't go cold turkey. I stopped eating chicken and beef in 2006. I kept eating seafood until the end of 2009. So going into 2010, I gave up seafood. But when I did it, I wasn't even in a position wherein I had the replacements. But looking back, I probably put myself at a deficit. And looking back, I think that I did, because I did not know about the minerals. I didn't have access to the minerals at the time. And I was drinking hot water back then within inside of my own ignorance and not knowing better. But that was the best I could do at that particular time of my life. But I'm passing that information on to you because you may be about to make that transition. And this is really the foundation. This is the first thing that I would do if I was to advise you or give you advice about making that transition. Make sure that your body is hydrated properly. You need half of your body's weight in fluid ounces of water every day. And you need minerals. So this is the easiest thing to do, is to drop these 70 trace all natural alkaline marine mineral sachets. They're like little tea bags, and basically shake it up, let it sit for 5 minutes. So as you drink water throughout the day, while you're trying to get your meal plan, or you're trying to overcome a particular sweet tooth, or you're trying to overcome whatever your weakness may be at that particular time, because we all go through that, at least you know that your body is getting the proper hydration and the proper mineralization, and you're keeping your alkalinity up. So you're creating a balance within inside of your internal ecosystem while you work out all of the other kinks inside of your program. So I would definitely put cellular hydration. And I see a lot of people, throughout the, plant-based vegan, vegetarian community, health community, physical fitness community, saying, hey, I drink a gallon of water a day. You need half. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm not trying to tell anybody what to do. I'm just giving you information. And you can use your own judgment when it comes down to how you approach it. But if your water is not microclustered, and that means that it doesn't have the right amount of natural electrolytes and mineral content within inside of it, then chances are it has chemicals in it. Chances are it's over acidic, and if it does have a high pH, it's not naturally occurring. Okay, that means that they artificially or synthetically spiked it, and the water is not going to be absorbed by your body on a cellular level, so that way it could get to your mitochondria. And if you don't know what your mitochondria is, Those are like your little power plants within inside of your cells, or what they aka call your nuclei, that converts all of the vitamins, minerals, and water and things into energy, so that your cells can produce what they need to produce as far as tasks and functions within inside of your body, and your DNA and your RNA and all of that other biological scientific stuff that you can get into if you want to look it up and learn more about it. But I'm not trying to talk over anybody's head, because just in case you are somebody that's new to this, I want to make sure that I keep it as simple as possible. So put your hydration of your cells and the mineralization of your cells and your alkalinity first, and then you can move to, okay, like I said, getting rid of the dairy if you're trying to go plant-based. But if you're trying to be vegetarian, vegetarians tend to do dairy and cheese and milk and eggs and stuff like that. I'm plant-based, so I typically do not, I'm not going to say typically, I do not do dairy, I do not do eggs, and I don't do that particular type of stuff. But like I said, that's your choice. But if you're looking for a healthier plant-based milk, like I said, you have other milks that I've already named and mentioned, which I'll mention again. I'm not saying that I'm listing all of them. I'm just giving you some to start with that you can look into as you make your transition, or if you already made the transition. If you haven't heard of them, you can look into them and see if they work for you. And that's the oat milk, almond milk, cashew milk, hemp milk, coconut milk, rice milk, and I think that those are pretty much like the main ones. And I'm not saying that, like I said, I'm not saying that they don't have other ones, but those are very good ones to look into to start with. So your cellular hydration, your milk, as far as juices, if you don't have a bullet, you don't have to use the bullet. You might get the Ninja or whatever your juicer is. You might want to get a full-fledged juicer, so you can just pop your vegetables in and whatever you want and create like real juice where it extracts the pulp away from the juice. But you want to at least have a blender wherein you can, because it's going to help you to be able to get a lot of nutrients inside of your body while you're on the go, because most people tend to be on the go, and you may not have all of this time to eat an apple, eat all of these different things all at once. But if you get you a juicer or a blender to make your smoothies, you can get a lot of nutrients inside of your body just in one cup. Like this morning, I wanted to do me a protein drink before my workout. So what did I do? No, I didn't do I did that later on. But I just got me some frozen fruit. And you don't always have to get, like, typically, ideally, you will want fresh produce. But if you read up on it, frozen fruit also helps to preserve nutrients, antioxidants, and all of that type of, nutritious stuff that you want to have inside of your body. Because you need antioxidants, because those are your natural cancer fighting agents. As far as like helping to eliminate what they call free radicals that are harmful to your body, that oxidize you and age you and pretty much attack your body on a cellular level. But nevertheless, frozen fruit is good. And then you can use your plant-based milks, and you can add your raw oats. That's another good go-to for like fiber. And, that also is another source of protein, iron, and things like that. Good for your heart, for your cardio, or your cardiac system and things like that. I add raw oats and, frozen fruit, another way, but I did add protein as far as like peanut butter. And, you can get, if you're concerned about like the sugar, which you should be, you can get organic peanut butter. You can get the peanut butter that that you got to whip it. You got to stir it. If you see the oil on the top, that's, natural peanut butter. The oil is naturally going to separate itself from the actual base. So you can either choose to take it out of the jar, or you can just stick you a spoon in there and whip it up and, reassimilate it and take it from there. Add your peanut butter, your oats. And like I said, if you have the spirulina and you have the chlorella, that's very rich, very high in natural protein. Also, spirulina and chlorella, they also are great for a heavy metal detoxification. Like if you've gotten vaccines, or, you feel like you've been eating a lot of fish, and, the larger the fish, the more mercury it has in it, just to give you some game, okay? So if you're trying to like get heavy metals out of your body, that chlorella and spirulina. And if you do get chlorella, you want to get the one that says crack shelled. And that might sound complicated to you right now, but the crack shell chlorella is the best chlorella to get. And it's like a green powder. And if you've never heard of it, if you've never seen it, all you got to do is go to YouTube, look it up. We're in the information age. I'm not trying to get too technical, but I'm just giving you some guideposts that you can go and look up and learn about it yourself. A 2-3 minute video, boom, you just got your free education. So you can take the chlorella or the spirulina, put it in your smoothies. So now you know you got more protein. You know you got a superfood that's good for your immune system. Your EFAs, once again, you can use ground flaxseed. If you don't know what flaxseed is, you can look up flaxseed, because that's good for your nervous system and your immune system and your central nervous system, which is essential to good health. Okay, so I think I've given you the protein, the EFAs, the dairy substitutes. If you're a person like, oh, I gotta have cheese, they've got all different types of plant-based cheeses. I think they got the Daiya, I think that's how you pronounce it. But you know, all you gotta do is just use technology. Go to Google and say the top 5 healthiest plant-based cheeses, and they're probably gonna give you 3 or 4 companies, and you can taste them. Some melt better than others, and you know, you can decide. I think the Viola, if I'm not pronouncing it right, but it starts with a V. You know, I think it's like in a dark blue, navy blue bag. But you know, you have to be willing to go through the trial and error with the plant-based cheese substitutes, because depending, you know, they got the shredded one, they got the slices, you know, they got every kind of cheese you could think about that's plant-based, that's non-dairy. They even have plant-based butter. Okay, it's not butter, but you would never know it. If you like the Gouda, I know some people like, you know, like that rich type of cheese. You know, like when I say rich, I'm talking about rich in taste. It's flavorful. They have that. They have plant-based cream cheese. If you're into, like, if you want to get you some whole wheat, you know, non-dairy bagels, if you're still into bread and things like that, if you need bread in your life and you haven't got to that point, you want to give it completely up, you still can do they have plant-based multi-grain bagels and breads. If you need spreads, if you're the type of person who needs spreads, they also have a plant-based pesto. Like if you like dips and stuff like that. What am I communicating? You don't have to just give up your complete way of life of things that you like to eat, you know, in between meals, because they have a plant-based substitute. So they got plant-based cheeses of all different types of slices, shreds, all of that. They got cream cheese. They have butter. They have pesto. You know, like if you're into chips and dips, they have healthy plant-based chips, wherein they have beet chips where they look like they probably have like air fried them or something like that. Wherein, you know, in the bag, but you want to watch out for canola oil, because you know we're still in a capitalistic market, and healthier living has become more popular. So you do have certain companies wherein they're cutting corners. So as far as like oils, I think I need to cover that. I'm seeing a lot of people that are trying to move completely away from oils with the air fryers and, you know, using water and, you know, different broths and things like that. But when you're new, you know, it can seem stressful for you because you're trying to feel your way through. You're trying to make the transition. You, for whatever reason it is that have led you to that particular, you know, fork in the road where you're like, okay, I'm ready to do something better. So, like I said, keep it simple at first. You know, don't be too hard on yourself. Every step forward, to me, is a step, you know, in the right direction. That's progress. So join yourself some plant-based vegetable, vegan and vegetarian groups. Start making new friends. You know, start, you know, asking questions. You know, you start reading articles. You know, start, you know, subscribing to. But also, like I said, you wanna start doing reads for yourself, because you want to build your own knowledge base, because everybody in the vegan and vegetarian community are not healthy. You have unhealthy vegans. You have unhealthy vegetarians. And I'll explain that before I end the video so that you'll know what to look out for. But canola oil, back to the oils. You have avocado oil is a great oil. Like if you're into Crisco, I hope you're not in Crisco, but if you're into like Vegetable oils, like, you want to get away from that. But avocado oil, grapeseed oil, you know, olive oil, right? You good to go, right? But like I said, do your reads on it. But there's a time wherein you will use olive oil, and there's a time where you would not use olive oil. So read you some articles on heat-resistant oils. Some oils, even though they're healthy oils, some oils are just good for marinating, like for your cold salads. Like if you want to make you a kale salad, or you want to make you a chickpea salad, or you want to make you a, you just want to kind of like make your own dressing or something like that. Cool. But, coconut oil. How could I forget about that, right? Which is a staple in a lot of plant-based homes or what have you. So coconut oil is also good. But olive oil, depending on what kind it is, it doesn't really have a high heat-resistant threshold. So it's not to say that you can't cook with it or saute with it, but you want to do it at a low heat. You want to do it at a low heat. And if you want to know the actual specific heat, like 125, 130 degrees, like I said, utilize the information that's on the internet. Read you some articles. You could just type in something and it'll give you a whole array, of different options. And you don't even have to read the whole article if time is an issue for you. All you have to do is read the bullet points and get the information and apply it. So avocado oil, grapeseed oil, coconut oil, and olive oil. State those. Now, some people will use peanut oil, right? Some people will use sunflower seed oil. So you do have other oils that you can use, but I'll leave it up to you when it comes down to, which one you choose. I'm just giving you some guideposts. So that way, like bullet points that you can look into to expound upon your own information base. And so that's the oils, the milk replacements, the EFAs. Like I said, flaxseed oil, hemp seeds, flax seeds, sunflower seeds, black chia seeds. Now, let me tell you about the black chia seeds. You can do a lot with the black chia seeds, but I see a lot of newbies making a very dangerous mistake, I'll say. You want to soak your black chia seeds before you consume them. Before you put them in your smoothies, before you put them, whether or not if you're doing the overnight oatmeal deal, or you trying to make them chia seed cups or put it in all you don't want to consume dry chia seeds, because if the recipe is telling you 2 tablespoons of chia seeds, that's really like, I would say 6 to 8 tablespoons, probably more than that. So what you want to do, you want to probably get you like a half a cup, or I'd say like a half a cup to 3/4 of a cup of black chia seeds, right? Like I said, they're very, very rich in EFAs, right? Omega-3, omega-6s, your essential fatty acids that your immune system and your central nervous system and your brain and your heart need for very vital reasons. So, like I said, you can always read up on it to get all of the specific details. I'm just giving you guideposts. But when you soak those chia seeds, what you're going to see is that they're going to expand. And you realistically want to do your tablespoon or your teaspoon measurement with your recipes or in your smoothies based on the soaked expansion of the black chia seed versus the dry. Because what can happen is your body, you already know, you're 70 to 80% water. Your body has natural fluids in it. If you consume those dry chia seeds, what do you think is going to happen once it gets within inside of, your throat, your stomach, your duodenum, which is another little compartment attached to your stomach and all of that before it actually ventures into your small intestine, etc. You don't want those black chia seeds to get inside of you and expand. Okay, because there have been cases, and I'm not trying to scare you, I'm trying to educate you so that you don't have to be scared, because if you knowledge is power to keep you from doing something that can hurt you. Okay, and I think that these are the little things that a lot of times people within inside of the plant-based vegan vegetarian community don't specify for, or provide people with, who are seeking to make those transitions. Because I think that if I've been on a path for 10 years plus, which I have, learned certain things, or people who have been doing this longer. I know people who have been doing this 20, 30 years. We have certain experience to be able to keep you from hurting yourself, that we should provide you with if you're serious about making a transition. You should not have to hurt yourself to learn the lesson, if there already been people who have already, hurt themselves, to keep you from hurting yourself. So you want to soak your chia seeds, because if you don't, the chances are you could take too much dry and it could swell up in you and it could cause blockage. Okay? Wherein you can become constipated, and in worst case, in a lot of cases, you can create a permanent block, wherein, especially if you're not hydrating yourself properly, once again, wherein it's not moving through you. And, I've seen in some cases wherein, that could lead to a possible surgery, wherein they have to actually go in or stick a tube in you or stuff like that. So be careful with the chia seeds, and the only thing you got to do is just soak them. So they're already expanded by the time you consume them. So I just wanted to take a little bit more time to add, some paint where it ain't, so to speak, and give you some more clarity with that. So, I think that pretty much covers it. As far as like recipes, another great cheese substitute, a staple in the plant-based community, is what is called nutritional yeast. And you're going to come across a lot of recipes that are going to call for nutritional yeast. If you're somebody that, you really like that real oceanic taste, wherein, seafood was really like your Achilles heel, then you're going to do a lot of seaweed. And they have certain seasonings. I think they're like Asian seasonings. And just look at recipes. Artichokes are going to be your best friend, aka hearts of palm. A lot of fish substitute, what they call non-fish or unfish, wherein it's not fish, it's actually artichoke. Excuse me, but with the seasoning, you actually get the same consistency of fish with the seasoning to go along with it, to help you to capture that taste and that flavor and that fishy taste. So, like I said, I'm not getting into recipes on this video. I just want you to have another resource if you're thinking about crossing over. And I'm not saying that I've mentioned everything. I've given you the dairy. Oh, and if you're into baking, there's a such thing as a flaxseed egg. And all you gotta do is look up flax seeds. They look like little seeds. They're kind of like burgundy or purple, but I think it's like I think it's like a tablespoon. You can get the measurements. All you have to do is just look up flaxseed eggs. It's a binder. Peanut butter is another binder. Applesauce is another binder for baking. Like if you want to make plant-based cookies, or you want to make a plant-based style cake, you can still make those types of things. Natural sugars. There's this great debate as far as like, should you do honey? Should you not do honey? I'll leave that debate up to whoever wants to debate it. I'm not going to debate it. I do honey, and I do organic maple syrup. But if you're looking for natural sweeteners, they have the stevia, right? And you can decide whether or not, if that meets your expectations or not. They have the agave, right? You have the agave. Some people like the agave, some people don't. Some people do honey, some people don't. You can decide for yourself. But you want to get away from white sugar. You want to get away from artificial sugars. You can even sweeten your smoothies with dates. Sometimes I use dates. Dates are natural sugar. You can use, and you also want to get into berries, because those are very rich in antioxidants. Blueberries, blackberries, strawberries. And in case you did not know, like for people that are suffering from gout and stuff like that, and you haven't shopped with Zuma Worldwide yet to get these minerals in your life and things like that, strawberries are very good to put in your smoothies because they've been known to pineapple, another natural anti-inflammatory. But like I said, what's great about these minerals is that it doesn't take a lot of work. It's not a lot of whipping. These are natural minerals. And if you incorporate the minerals inside your water, you're going to take care of a lot of things naturally without you having to put forth a lot of effort. Because when we're ignorant to something, because we're all ignorant of something. It's something that we don't know, okay? Because it's things that I don't know that I'm ignorant of to this day, and that I may never come to know. But what I'm saying is, we have to accept the fact that when we're transitioning into a new life or adopting a new way of life or a new skill or we're approaching something new, there's a pride factor. But we got to get rid of that because you're initially becoming a baby again. Okay, I was a newborn when I first started being plant-based. There were things that I did not know, but I had the opportunity to read about it. I was reading about it for a couple of years before I actually got my hands on certain things, like the superfoods. And I'm going to give you a couple of things to look into, like moringa, right? If you're new and you don't know what moringa is, look up moringa. You can put that in your smoothie. Sarsaparilla, maca root or maca root powder, right? Look that up, right? You're probably not going to get all of this stuff at once, but I'm like I said, I'm creating a resource for you because if you know somebody that wants to make this transition, this will be on my page. You can share this with somebody. There are other plant-based, vegan, vegetarian practitioners of men and women who are on my page who may see this video. Don't hesitate to put something in the comments if you think it's something that I left out or you can add more value. I'm just creating a resource, but it's going to be a communal effort because a lot of times people don't approach something because they don't know, they're busy, they don't got time to read about it, and it's easy to just keep doing what you've been doing. But all the while, it's something in your mind like, hey, you know what, I want to do this, I want to do this. That's where it starts. If you're starting to have those thoughts, you're really right to near the line, because I was there. Like, oh, I want to do this. I want to become plant-based. I want to start eating healthier. We were all there. You know what I'm saying? Because I grew up eating fast food and drinking and smoking cigarettes and doing all of that stuff. And I share that with people because I want you not to just see me as, like I'm just floating in the clouds. Like I was just like this perfect star. No. It's important. I think it's important for those who are doing things better now to communicate to the people who are not there yet that we used to be where you're at. I grew up eating fast food. I ate meat. I ate pork. I ate steak. I drank 40s and beer and smoked cigarettes from the age of 11 to the age of 21. Right? There was a time wherein I just didn't care about my health and didn't want to hear about it. So I'm putting that little tidbit in there because it's not an impossibility. I wasn't working out every day. I wasn't, knowledgeable about microcluster ions, negative ions inside of the water, cellular hydration. I was a baby too. So don't be prideful and don't let the ego or any of those things get in your way of your growth, because then you're going to put a cap on yourself and you're going to prolong your growth process. We have to admit when we don't know, if it's something that we want to do, you choose your teachers. We all choose our teachers. Okay? I had my teachers. It was certain authors that I read that I was receptive of, and everybody connects with different energies. You may or may not be able to connect with me. Find somebody that you feel comfortable asking questions and getting answers from. And like I said, we're in the information age. You can always Google, look up things, read things, and, take baby steps. Like I said, go inside your kitchen, right? Look inside of your refrigerator and you make the decision and say, oh, hey, you know what? I'm going to start with milk replacements, with the dairy. And because you don't got to revamp your whole life overnight. That's what I want you to understand. You don't have to be intimidated by moving in a better direction, because you don't have to do it all at once. You say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna replace this white sugar. They have coconut sugar. They have coconut palm sugar. Now, they're tricking a lot of people with the brown sugar. You want to be careful with that, because all they're really doing in a lot of cases, they're just taking white sugar and they're caramelizing it, right? So, unfortunately, life is a war. So there is still a lot of deception. And if you want to deceive somebody, the best thing to do is to get them to think that they're getting what they really want. Okay? So, but if you when we educate ourselves, then, and we know how we're being lied to, we know how we're being manipulated, we know how we're being deceived, then we become much smarter, wiser, and attentive shoppers, okay, consumers. So now it becomes harder to trick us, right? So if you know that they're caramelizing white sugar, then you're going to get you some coconut sugar, or you're going to make sure that this is actually real organic brown sugar, and that you're not getting tricked out of your money. Because the most dangerous thing that you can do is to think that you're getting what you want, but then ultimately, because you're going to drop your defenses, right? So when you drop your defenses and your forward thinking becomes your subconscious, so now you've allowed this information or this product into your life, and you think that you're getting something healthier, but ultimately you're still doing more damage, because you're going to do more damage to yourself or to ourselves when we drop our guards completely, thinking that we don't have to defend ourselves against this particular product, when in all actuality it's doing us more harm than it's doing us good. And it's going to keep on doing us harm, because we're not going to see it as where it's something to be defended against. That's why you have a lot of people in the plant-based vegan and vegetarian community that are not losing weight. They're not bringing their high blood pressure down. They're not getting rid of the constipation. They're still not getting rid of the inflammation. Why? Because even though they give up the meat and the dairy, they may still be doing a lot of white sugar, which is totally antithesis to proper gut health. So I will be remiss if I did not talk to you about pro and prebiotics. Now, ultimately, in an ideal world, we would love to believe that the phytonutrients that we need for proper gut health, right, and for immune system, and have the proper enzymes, that we could get all of that from our fruits and vegetables. But back to the beginning, like I told you before, the soil in America is been made mineral deficient due to herbicides, pesticides, glyphosate, and all an array Monsanto GMO, genetically modified organisms, and all of these other things that we got to think about, right? So I advocate a healthy pre and probiotic being incorporated with this transition, so, and enzymes, so that way you know you got the proper digestion, you know that your gut lining is being strengthened and fortified, right? The building blocks of your gut lining, because 70% of our immune system is in our gut. So a healthy gut means that you have a strong immune system, right? Lymphatic system. Your lymphatic system is also a branch of your health, of your immune system. So I say all this to say, along with that, invest in yourself a healthy prebiotic and probiotic. How do you choose one? I have a good recommendation, but everybody's not going to take my recommendation. But if you want my recommendation, all you got to do is just reach out to me, and I will point you in the right direction of a very dependable and effective and healthy pre and probiotic. But in case you want to go your own way, I'll give you some tips of things that you can look out for. With the probiotic, you want to pay attention to the strains, right? Now, typically, I've seen them ripping people off in the public sector, right? Wherein they're selling you 1.5 strains to 2 strains of probiotic. That's not going to really do you any justice. And then they're charging you top dollar. Some I've seen where they give you 3 to 5 strains, and they're charging you like 30 to 50 bucks. Well, we have 8 strains. right? And they're top of the line strains. What are the strains for? Each strain is responsible for providing your gut health with the proper amount of gut flora. And they also have a thing called CFUs, which is colony forming units. And we have 30 billion. Now you have some companies that are tricking you, like, oh, we have 100 billion CFUs. But there's also a thing as doing too much. But sometimes they trump the numbers up to make you think that you're getting a better deal, but ultimately your body is not going to be able to utilize all of that stuff. And in a lot of cases, it's not really quality ingredients. So you want quality volume, which is amount, and you want the quality essential ingredients. Because sometimes it's not about how much, it's about the quality of what you're actually getting, and can your body actually use it. So you want to deal with a good pre-probiotic along with proper, like, frozen fruits in your smoothies, plant milks. I already went over how to get the plant-based proteins, right? Your cheese substitutes, right? Your seeds, your nuts, things like that. I highly recommend, back to the flax seeds, that you ground it up. And this is something that you probably haven't heard, probably never heard. But you don't want to develop diverticulitis. What is diverticulitis? Diverticulitis is when your gut lining gets those little holes in them, back to having a quality pre-probiotic. But you don't want to exasperate or to, complicate things or increase upon the probability of you developing Crohn's disease or IBS because of what you're eating. So the flaxseed is so small, chances are you're not going to really chew that up. So I like to ground mines. Sesame seeds, they're not as sharp at the tip, but flax seeds have a very sharp tip. So I prefer ground flaxseed, because that way I know that, because that blender is probably not going to chop it all up either. But if you do it dry, so how do you do that? You can get flax seeds in the seed form, and you can put them in your blender and you can ground it up. Or even if you have a food processor, whatever your technique or your methodology is, or you can purchase it that way, wherein it's already ground up for you. It's the same flaxseed, but you don't want those little needles. And even pumpkin seeds have very sharp tips. So if you're going to chew that stuff up, you need to make sure that you chew it up really good. And like I said, the enzymes are good because that's going to break that down. But I'm giving you little tips right off the top of my head. I'm not a scripted person. I'm just trying to I'm sharing experience with you. Some of it may resonate. Some of it make sense to you right now. Some of it may not make sense to you. But you can always look this stuff up. And like I said, you can always reach out to me directly wherever you're at with inside of your transition, and ask questions. And whether it's in the comments or you need to get with me directly, I make myself accessible, because it's not just all about supplements. It's not just all about exercise. It's not just all about training. It's all together as one, which is why you have mind. I put spirit first. Spirit, mind, then body. That's how I like to say it. That's just me. But you want to approach your way of life with oneness. You don't want to just focus so much on exercise and you're not hydrating your body properly, right? You don't want to focus so much on supplements and then you're not eating right. You don't want to be saying, "Oh, I'm plant-based and vegan," but you eating a pack of Oreo cookies every day. Yeah, you have a lot of plant-based junk food out here, which attributes to a lot of people. Well, I'm not going to say a lot, but you do have people in the plant-based vegan vegetarian community who are still obese. They're still suffering from being overweight. I'm not talking bad about anybody. I'm just giving you the facts. And if you're someone who wants to lose weight and you're thinking that just because you stop eating meat, that's going to be the clincher, I'm here to tell you that that's not necessarily always the case. Because if you're not hydrating your body properly, if you're not detoxifying your cells, If you're still constipated, there's still people who are in the plant-based vegan vegetarian community who are not having enough BMs in a day. Why? Because they're still constipated. They still have poor digestion, right? Even when you're eating raw veggies and raw vegetables and leafy greens and still stuff like that, it has to be digested. And just to give you some more game, which is just, it's information. When you hear me say game, I'm just giving you information and education, right? So whatever you eat, your body has to have the enzyme to go along with it in order to break that particular food or substance down. Protein has a specific enzyme that's specific case sensitive to it. Fruits, vegetables, right? Liquids, everything that you put in your body has a certain enzyme that is responsible for digesting it and assimilating it. So what do you think is going to happen, right? If you eat a whole kale salad, but that kale is mineral deficient and you're cellularly hydrated and you lack the right digestive enzymes to break down those leafy greens, what do you think is going to happen? It's going to turn into gas. It's going to become gaseous in your stomach, right? Or in your intestines. Why? Because your body does not have what it needs in order to deal with it properly. So then what once was healthy, started off as healthy, it can become toxic. Now you're constipated. Now you're bloated. Now you got acid reflux. So I'm giving you a little bit of everything to communicate to you that it's not a one-trick pony. Your spiritual growth is a part of holistic healing as well. What does that mean? Your relationships. They don't talk about that a lot. Your relationships, just like food can be toxic, just like food and drink can have a certain pH or a certain acidity level, so are your relationships. Stress causes your body to release cortisol and other stress-related hormones that can prevent you from detoxifying your body. Why? Because your immune system is creating a hormone thinking that you're in a fight or flight type of scenario. So I'm going to give you something to look up. Look up sympathetic and parasympathetic when it comes down to your immune system, right? Parasympathetic and sympathetic. And you'll find out that your body, your visceral, your gut, right? And certain organs and systems inside of your body actually shut down when you're stressed out, when you're angry, when you're in a rage, when you're depressed, or any of those type, or when you're in a fight or flight type of scenario. Because your body doesn't know whether or not if you're actually physically being attacked or not. The only thing that it knows is the vibration that you're feeling is going to release either a healthy hormone or stressor hormones. So if you're in a high stress situation, that means that if you're mineral deficient and you're not producing enough oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, you get the picture, then your stressor hormones are going to cause you to communicate to your body like you're in a fight or flight scenario. So now as you're eating, right, and as you're drinking, and as you're going throughout your day and you're stressed out and you're angry and you're depressed, this is all spiritual, people, which is connected to what? To your mind and your body. So wherein you're eating healthy, you're drinking healthy, you're exercising, right? You're doing all of these better things, but you still haven't detoxified your life on a relationship basis. And I'm not trying to tell anybody what to do, but this is what a lot of people are not prepared for. Food, when you look at any culture, food, drink, and all of those things tend to be attached to socialization when people gather. So you're going to also go through a social detoxification. There are going to be some people who are going to support you in your growth, and there are going to be people who are not. right? There are going to be people who are going to speak affirmation and that are going to, support you in what you're doing. And you're going to have people that are telling you, oh, you're just going through a phase. Why are you doing that? It's like they're seeking to try to make you feel self-conscious about your own decisions. Why? Because they're not where you're at in their own growth. So now you're going to start feeling pressure coming from the people that you've probably known all your life. They may be your family. They may be your friends. I've got to prepare you for that. Okay? Because you're not going to be prepared for that going into it. Because you're like, oh, I'm doing something better for myself. Then the people that I know, love, and care about, who know, love, and care about me, they're going to support me. No, they're going to be like, you don't want no chicken? You sure you don't want none of this? Why are you doing that? Well, how long are you going to do it? You see, you're going to get that. And it's going to make you, if you're not strong in your transition, it can make you feel left out. It can make you feel self-conscious. It can make you start feeling thoughts of, do I really want to do this? Because you want to be accepted by your peers, by your loved ones, people that you've known practically all of your life. They're not, in a lot of cases, they're not going to want you to do it. Do you cut them off completely? Is that what I'm saying? No, I'm not saying that. But you're going to have to go within inside of yourself. This is the spiritual part. You have to grow inside of your reasons for doing what you're doing. So you're going to have to read. You're going to have to meditate. You're going to have to once again set out to create new supportive relationships, friendships, support groups, people who are on the same path and on the same journey, who are either going through the same transition as you're going through, or that you're thinking about going through, or that you've already crossed that threshold and you're like I said, you're a baby in the way of life. You're growing. You're like an infant, and you're trying to find your way. That's your most vulnerable time in anything. And you're going to have all of these people it's like planting a seed, trying to snatch you out the ground, trying to sabotage your growth, trying to make you feel, speak doubt, because that's where they're at. People can only give you the energy that emanates from where they're currently at within inside of their own life. So if they're still smoking cigarettes, eating this, eating that, they're on pharmaceuticals, they're on insulin, and they're not thinking about it, they're not trying to do better. What makes you think that you're going to make them feel some kind of way? You ever heard that term, like, your growth or your truth, or, kind of disrupts other people's quote unquote demons? It's not necessarily demons. It's just that when you put a cleaner glass next to one glass that's not as clean, you're going to start having people saying, well, why are you doing that? Well, how do you get your protein? Or you go out to eat with them, right? And it's like they're going to have something to say about what you're doing. And it's because something inside of them, by them being exposed to you and what you're doing, it's going to realistically have them questioning themselves. And in them questioning themselves, they're going to feel they're going to become uncomfortable around you, or in your presence, or within your aura, or your energy field. Because as your energy field, it's not just all about alkaline water and raising the vibration of your food and water. As you begin to clean yourself out, as you begin to detoxify yourself, as you begin to raise your pH, as your consciousness and your thoughts and your decisions begin to move you in a healthier way, in a better way, you're going to also change your vibration. Your frequency is going to raise. Your conversation, your interest is going to change. You see, so you're literally becoming renewed. And as you begin to renew yourself, and you begin to feel and to be different and to grow into a better you're going to disrupt the peace of those who are not doing what you're doing. They're going to start speaking negatively to you. They're going to start they might try to clown you. You know, like, why you eating this rabbit food? Like, why you eating this, and where the meat at, you know? And you just gotta just understand that that's where they're at. But don't allow that to deter you. Take that as a sign that you're actually on the right path. You see, because the further you get away from where you're not supposed to be, from thoughts and decisions and energies and vibrations and frequencies and all of that stuff, whatever language you speak out there, you get the picture. The further you get away from what's hurting you, and the closer you get to what's helping you, you're going to lose some people. Okay? Your social dynamic is going to change. So what am I conveying in my closing? Your growth, you have to accept it as a total, complete thing. And if you put a cap or a limit on it, then you're putting a cap and a limit on your results. It's not that you can't get the results, but everything springs forth from within us. So where there's doubt, you will have less results. Why? Because you'll have more apprehension towards approaching the very thing that you're saying that you want and that you need in your life, that can actually give you the results that you're saying that you want to achieve. But the results in themselves are just the mere fruit of a process. So you can either speed up your process, and when I say speed it up, I don't mean that it's going to happen fast. I'm talking about you can accept what comes along with your journey totally, and you're going to get quicker results opposed or in contrast with somebody that's tiptoeing through the tulips, wherein it's a up and down type of thing. 1 minute they here, 1 minute they there. But at the same rate, they're still going through their process. I'm not criticizing that. And I'm going to give you an example. Before I actually kick cigarettes, I might ball a whole pack of Newports up and throw it away. I'm going through a process because I'm growing stronger. I just wasn't at that point in my life wherein I could just ball it up. And because if I was at that point where I was strong enough, I would have never bought them. You see? But I went from smoking them and buying them and smoking them and not caring about smoking them to now I'm thinking about, man, you know, I really want to stop doing this to myself. That's growth, believe it or not. You know, that's growth, because I wasn't thinking about it at all, right? So now I go to, well, you know, I'm doing this amount this day, but now I decreased it. Now I get to the point where, oh, I feel in my chest, you know, I don't like how they smell. You know, you're going through a process. Now I'm like, you know, I'm really tired of this. You're going through a struggle. But as you can see, you're escalating, and this relationship, this bad relationship is going through something. What am I saying? You got to go through the chaos. You know, some people never make it out of the chaos. But the chaos is a part of the process. You're going through this inner battle. You're going through this inner struggle. Now you're actually fighting with this habit, right? That's growth. Because before you wasn't fighting with it at all. What am I saying? You're going to have to wrestle with what's wrestling with you. And every time we win a battle, we grow. And who's to say that you won't go backwards? Like I said, I stopped eating fish and seafood going into 2010. And I went right back to eating it in 2013 for like 3 or 4 months, right? What happened right there? I fell off. Did I let it whip me though? Nah, because it was a choice. I'm like, wow, dude, I'm thinking, well, I need this. I mean, give me some more protein. Nah. But I started reading. And then I stopped eating. I haven't eaten it since. I haven't eaten fish since what? The beginning of 2014. Do you see what I'm saying? So, if you crush those pack of cigarettes up, hypothetically speaking, and then you go and say, oh, I need one, you know, and you trying to fix it like how I used to, don't whip yourself. Learn from it. What was it that made you fall off? What was the thought process? Analyze yourself and examine your own weakness. Find out how your mind works. Find out how your impulses work. This is the self-work that you got to go through. Because it's just like a weapon. If you want to understand it, you got to break it down. So you got to break your mind down. You got to break your past down. You got to break your tendencies down. And you got to say, okay, what causes me to reach for this right here? What is it that's making me or what is my trigger? What triggers me to want to do this or that or this or that? And once you identify with that, then you just gain some more knowledge about yourself that you can begin to analyze. And then every time you fall off, you come back stronger. You see? And this is what you're not going to get a lot of. They're not going to really talk to you and give you the process. They're going to give you recipes. And you're like, well, nah. Spirit first. What's the spirit? Your past, your present equals your future. Okay, why are you wilding out? Why are you eating all of this comfort food? You know, what is it that's causing you to want to live an unhealthy life? That's a part of holistic healing. You see? It might be a relationship that you might have to just show enough get rid of. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just giving you as full of a scope on this video so that you can understand it's not just meat, it's not just supplements, it's not just alkaline water, right? You got to dissect your life, because before you can get to the point where you even want to do better, you have to break yourself down to the point of what, and ask yourself some serious questions as to, why don't I care about my health? Why am I wilding out on this fast food? Why am I smoking all of these cigarettes? Why am I doing all of these negative things to myself? Why am I hurting myself? Why am I on this self-destructive path? And that's why I know it's a lot of people that see my content and other people's content that's healthy, but what is it that makes you pass it by? Right? That's an internal issue, right? I'm not in that particular lane. You know, those are some things that you got to fix within inside of yourself. Just like it's certain things that I had to fix within inside of myself and face within inside of my own thinking. Because there's a difference between the guy, you know, that didn't care about what I was doing and the guy that came to care about what I was putting inside of my body. And that's the self-work. So keep going through your self-work. Keep asking yourself the critical questions. Keep telling yourself the truth. And when you get to that point where you're ready to make a change, I'm giving you a bit of a map to say, okay, I could do this, I could do that, I could look this up, I could read up on this, I could substitute this for that. But that's the end game. Spirit comes first, then the mind. What is the mind? That's the information. Okay, what to do, how to do, right? Once you get the what and the how, the when, the why, all that, then comes the doing, the physical. Now you taking, your spirit is in alignment. You did the internal cleansing, healing. You got yourself together. You're confident. You're not depressed, suppressed, oppressed, and repressed no more. You're not feeling sorry for yourself. You got yourself together internally. Now we could go to work with getting the information and then applying it through demonstration. And now you made it back to the physical realm. What's the physical realm? Now you're doing it. You see, I put the videos up there, you know, showing you how to make the quinoa, you know, showing you certain things that you can make. Now you caught up in the doing. And as you do it, you're going to get better at it. So don't be intimidated. If you're making a transition, do it safely. Remember, there's a such thing as losing weight healthy, in a healthy way, and an unhealthy way. Anything that you're doing in an unhealthy way is not going to last. So with that, do you some walks. Walking helps. Your body, if you walk 30 minutes a day, you can read it. Your body automatically releases a natural fat burning hormone that burns fat for 14 hours. You couple that with real true cellular hydration, mineralization, and get your mind right, get your spirit right, get your spirit and your mind right. Your body will become the platform and the canvas for you to create the healthier life that you're saying that you want to live. But if you don't got your mind right and you got internal things that's going on, then that's something that you got to work out within inside of yourself. Maybe you need some counseling. Maybe you need to sit down with whatever. I'm the guy that's here helping you when you ready to help yourself. I can't run the people down. I can't chase the people. I'm not here to convince the people. The only thing that we're here to do is to provide you with information, which is the education, and when you're ready to make the move. That's why we're here. When I say we, because I'm not by myself, because I have other men and women on my page who are also in various ways, who are part of the holistic community, who are providing you with this information. So I think that I pretty much gotten what I needed to get off of my mind and some. And I'm going to put this on my page. If you know anybody, that might need this information, feel free to share it as you wish. It's your brother, in health, wellness, and abundance. Continue to strive, continue to move forward, continue to be realistic with yourselves. And, let's continue to be, the best that we could be. Let's keep changing the health of the generation, spirit, mind, and body. Let's get back into the oneness. And I appreciate y'all share this time with me, whether you seeing this now or you come across this later. I bid you farewell. Take care of yourselves. And remember, your health is your responsibility. And just like the law, you can't claim ignorance and use that as an excuse, because the information is there. It's up for us to learn it, and it's up for us to put it to use every day of our lives to the best of our ability. And most of all, the spirit of community says, I'm going to continue to be an inspiration and motivation. Why? Because that's my way of giving back, sharing my experience, my knowledge of what I've come to know and to experience and to take on within inside of my way of life up to this particular stage. I'm still a student. I'm going to forever be a student because I want to continue to keep growing. And I trust that you'll continue to hold that same sentiment. So y'all take care of yourselves. Peace and blessings. Health is wealth. And I'll see y'all on the next one. Take care of yourself. And remember, stay hydrated with that X2O. Peace.